How's it going, everybody? Nate Winicki here with BD Outdoors. You guys may have seen me online. I work at Pacific Coast Bait and Tackle as well. And today we're going to be talking about halibut fishing. This has been an incredible halibut year so far, both up in the Channel Islands all the way down to San Diego Bay. So we're going to be covering the rig to use live bait fishing, both inshore and offshore. Let's start with the rigs here. Keep in mind that halibut, by and large, they don't pull that hard, so you can use a wide variety of different outfits to fish for them. Typically though, I like to have about my standard 30-pound rig. So I have a CalStar 800M paired with a Fathom 25 Star Drag. It has 30-pound mono on it. I like using mono because it gives me more stretch when those fish take those bolting runs. And it goes right down to our rig here. So this is started with a 3-way swivel. I like the ones by Spro. They have one swivel into another one. It makes it very easy and it prevents tangle ups. The other part of this that I really like is that it allows you to have a breakaway down to your weight. I like these clips. This clip is from Roscoe Terminal Tackle. They work excellent. And what this allows you to do is change out your sinkers depending on the depth and the current. A big part of halibut fishing is maintaining bottom contact and making sure your rig is straight up and down. That is going to be your key to knowing when you get bit or not, and it is the basis of this rig here. So once you have your proper size sinker on here, you're going to have a leader of about 2.5, 3 feet at most of 25 or 30 pound fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon with halibut fishing is very important. I've done many trips where the only guy that to not catch a fish was the one guy using straight mono. I don't know if it's actually how it presents your bait, whether it's just a more kind of stiff line or something, but the fluoro does something to your bait. I like using Seagar. There's a gold label, the green label, both work just fine. 25 or 30 pound is typically what I'm running with. Now, the size hook depends on the size of your bait. I have this rigged up right here for fishing a fin bait, say a mackerel or a larger sardine, but if you have squid, you typically don't want to run the stinger. You want to run just a large 4/0 or 5/0 J hook that you can have a solid purchase right in the top of the squid's nose there. Now, going back to this though, most of the time I'm using fin bait, whether that be a mackerel or a sardine, so I like to use a trap rig like I have set up here. The top hook here can vary in size. This is a 2.0 O'Shaughnessy 94-150 by Mustad. It's an inexpensive bait hook. It's been used for years and years, and this design has really never let me down. I love this hook. Coming back here, this is a little bit of a special treble that I have. This is the Kingfish treble, 4X strong by Mustad. It's just like the typical cheap Mustad hooks you're used to buying, but it's 3X or 4X strong, which means that if you do hook your big halibut just by the trap rig back here, which does happen, you're not gonna lose it. Again, size of hook depends on size of bait, but typically I run a 2.0 up front and a size 6 in the back. I tie this on with a snell, which if you don't know, I'm sure we'll be doing a video on pretty soon here on how to tie up. So this setup here, your 30-pound setup, is excellent if you're up on an overnight or a 2-day trip going out of the Channel Islands. But say you're fishing the bay, you're in Mission Bay, San Diego Bay, 8-10 feet of water. This is all I need to use. This is a Phoenix Feather, 10 to 25 pound with a size 200 Abu Garcia Inshore Pro reel. Same setup I'm using for spotties, for anything really inshore, and it allows you to downsize your gear. Instead of using 30 pound, I use 15 pound fluoro, but I'm using the exact same rig. As you see, it's the same trap rig, a little bit of a smaller hook, a size 2 hook, a size 8 back here. But again, you're fishing these things exactly the same way. You want to stay up and down, and you want to wait for any sort of variance in your bait's action. So with that, let's get into the weights here. One of the biggest things about halibut fishing is what kind of weight and what the style of the weight is. Typically, I run just your standard torpedo, yet I have taken some notes from the commercial guys who only use the cannonball weights. The ball weights tend to bounce on the bottom better, they don't get stuck in the mud as well, and they also disrupt that bottom and kick that halibut up off the mud. Might just be a theory of mine, but I like the ball weights and I'm going to continue using them. Depending on where you guys are at and what kind of water you're fishing, with a rig like this, you're going to be fishing as light as a 1 or 1.5 ounce sinker. Offshore, I'm typically starting with about a 4 or a 6, and I'll go all the way up to a 10 ounce. Again, the weight is dependent on the current and the depth you're fishing. So if that current is really ripping, you might have to use more weight than you're used to using to stay on the bottom. Okay, so now that we're all rigged up, we're gonna talk a little bit about how to fish for these things and what it feels like to get a bite. Like I said, you want to be right up and down. Feeling the bottom is very key. And at the same time, you'll be feeling your bait if you're using a sardine going down there. And they'll give you little indications or cues. Sometimes you'll feel your bait getting real nervous. And most of the time I've gotten a bite right after that. So if you feel something, just pay attention. Because halibut can bite in a variety of different ways, and they can be extremely subtle in the way they pick up your bait. Sometimes it literally feels like you're dragging along and you've hit a patch of kelp. And I'll tell you, about 60% of the time, it is a patch of kelp. But sometimes else, about, I would say, a good 25-30% of the time, that's a halibut that has just gnawed onto your bait and he's going right along with it. And you didn't feel any sort of tap, but he's there. So it's important to be very responsive to any sort of change in pressure with your bait. You just lift the rod and you just keep winding. You never want to smack into it like a spotty or a largemouth. You just lift and you wind and it's going to come tight. The next thing about halibut fishing is that they really don't fight that hard, but it's all up to the angler to calm that fish down. Typically with a big one, you're gonna have one long run that's gonna go out because it knows something's wrong, but if you keep that high rod tip, you don't pump, you just have a straight grind going with a light drag, you'll turn that fish's head and you'll guide it right up to the top. If you stay calm, the fish will stay calm and you'll lay it out right underneath the surface. The biggest thing is that you don't want that halibut's head to pop out of the water at all. They have a tendency to go from 0 to 100. They dart, they have these crazy erratic actions, but you can limit that by staying calm and guiding that fish up towards the gaff. All right, so with this all covered, it's up to you guys. Get out there, make some drifts. The halibut are still biting. So leave a comment if you guys like this, if you guys want us to cover anything else. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much.